Hello, friends. The 729th day of the war between Russia and Ukraine continues. The Russian Ministry of Defense today officially announced the capture of the village of Pobieda near Maryanka. The map of the Ukrainian military resource deep state confirms this. Let me remind you that in this locality, there was a large fortified area of the Ukrainian armed forces. For the military holding this direction, this is a heavy loss, especially for the flanks. According to Ukrainian telegram channels, the seizure of Pobieda led to a deterioration in the position of our forces in Novomikhailivka. With the further advance of the Russians in the direction of Konstantinivka, in order to avoid encirclement, Novomikhailivka will have to be abandoned. Ukrainian journalist Saplienko writes that it seems that soon we will have another road of life. For they lost their tactical advantage with the loss of Pobieda. The enemy realized that his pressure was successful and continued his assaults. Enemy infantry was advancing along the flanks in huge numbers. Today, without equipment. It's a little easier, the soldiers say. But due to the shortage of shells and people, which are now acutely observed along the entire front line, there is little a group of Russians is a considerable problem for us. I would very much like the unit leaving the village to sometimes think about its neighbors on the flanks, writes Saplienko. Military correspondent of the television news service Yulia Kiriyenko writes that the Ukrainian armed forces in Vuhledar risk being caught in pincers, and one battalion in the Maryanka direction is already under threat of encirclement. One battalion, one brigade can already form a perimeter defense, and this is several hundred of our soldiers, because the enemy is around them, because the flanks have sagged and our neighboring units could not hold them, because the enemy has more forces, she writes. And he calls on the Tavria Operational Strategic Group of troops to react and build a second line of defense there as soon as possible. And Kurahovi means get ready. The enemy's assault attacks are very strong. Columns of equipment are coming towards our forces from two directions. It's good that ours managed to accumulate a little shells and get reinforcements with people. They didn't pay enough attention to this direction in vain. If the invaders advance there, then we will have another Bakhmut or Avdiivka. Only it will be Vuhledar, writes Kiriyenko. Also, the telegram channel of the 46th Brigade writes that the enemy discovered a new direction, Krasnohorivka, and unexpectedly began to develop an offensive south of this settlement. The enemy began to bypass Georgiivka further south and north. On the Avdiivka sector of the front, the enemy is pressing in the direction of Orlivka and Lastochkini, where he is advancing to a depth of 200 meters. The withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from Avdiivka was chaotic and began even before Siersky's order. The soldiers simply began to leave their positions without coordination with the command. The Washington Post writes about this with reference to the Ukrainian military. The soldiers involved in the operation said they were not sure how many of their comrades remained in Avdiivka, but any number of casualties would likely lead to a further deterioration in morale on the front line, the article says. The Washington Post quoted U.S. officials as saying, citing Ukrainian officials, that dozens of Ukrainian soldiers remained in Avdiivka as their units withdrew. One senior U.S. official said at least 25 Ukrainian soldiers were captured by the advancing Russian army. The number could be around 100, as the Ukrainians later admitted to U.S. officials. Armed forces members familiar with the last weeks of fighting in Avdiivka and the rapid withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from the city said the situation was chaotic and poorly planned. The retreat, ordered by Colonel General Siersky, was reportedly a dark and dangerous operation, and hardly an orderly retreat to more advantageous positions, as Ukrainian military commanders claimed. One soldier anonymously said that some troops were ordered to take positions that had already been lost or destroyed. The soldier said the soldiers were exhausted after 2 years of unrotated service, and fatigue forced them to leave their positions without prior approval from the command. Today, the Ukrainian armed forces confirmed an attack on a Russian military training ground on the eastern shore of the Kherson region, a video of which appeared yesterday. The spokesman for the Southern Defense Forces Yevhenii says that at least 60 Russian military personnel will definitely not return to combat positions. And the speaker of the Odessa city administration, Brachuk, clarified that the strike was carried out at a Russian training ground near Krinky. Yevhenii indirectly confirms this. This whole profanation with planting the flag and escaping from there was enchantingly completed by yesterday's work at one of the training grounds, where, in fact, the corresponding assault groups are trained, she said. Let me remind you that the other day Shoigu said that Krinky, where the Ukrainian armed forces held a bridgehead, had been cleared, and the Russian army showed a video of how it was planting its flag there. However, the Southern Defense Forces called the claims manipulation and fabrication. Meanwhile, positional combat continues in Krinky. The Ukrainian armed forces repelled an attack by an enemy assault group. Friends, preparing these daily reports has become my full-time job, and I have no other job for obvious reasons. There have been few views on the channel lately, which is why I ask for your help. If you have the opportunity to support me financially, I would be very grateful. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.